For more, we're joined by several guests. From Japan, we go to Aileen Mioko Smith, Executive Director of the Kyoto-based group Green Action. And here in the U.S., we're joined in New York by Saburo Kitajima. He's a contract laborer and union organizer from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, accompanied by his English-Japanese translator, Jen Chijiwa. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Aileen Mioko Smith, talk about what is happening now in Japan, what people are calling for, the memorial services today.
Well, we had the memorial services, and of course, everybody's in mourning because 1 year ago we lost so many loved ones. And as you mentioned, the recovery is still ongoing, and many areas have not recovered at all. I just spoke with somebody who has evacuated from that area to our region, which is the Osaka-Kyoto area. And he went back home and he went up on the high hills and looked down, and he said it's still the same as it was a year ago. So there are various areas, but lots of rubble has still yet to be cleared. In the Fukushima area, in Fukushima, there are 2 million people living in the prefecture, the state. And about 3/4 of those people are living under levels of very serious radioactive contamination. There are prefectures and hotspots in surrounding areas that also have high levels. About 350,000 children are living under these conditions. And recently, the Japanese government said that it will have an all-out effort to decontaminate Fukushima, the radiation. But that's a long ways away. The decontamination has started, but how effective it can be. Some areas have been decontaminated, only levels of the radiation went down 10%, 20%. And some areas actually were measured higher afterwards. That's because the hillsides bring down the radiation again. But people are trapped there because of this alibi, this word decontamination, because people living 40, 50 miles outside, out from the reactors. This is in, for example, Fukushima City, which is the capital of the state, the prefecture, and another city, Date. These areas are 40, 50 miles away, and they are fighting to be evacuated. They call it the right to evacuate, and that's because they want a compensation from the government if they elect to evacuate, and the government has refused. There hasn't been a cent paid to people who want to self-evacuate except a one-time payment of $1,043, and that's it. And even the people who've officially evacuated have only received a first-time one-off payment of $13,043. This is, you know, you've had to leave your home. You've lost your home for as far as you know, forever maybe, and you're living in limbo in evacuation, and you only receive that amount of money. The other thing that's been happening is that the prefecture, the state of Fukushima, initiated a health survey of the residents. This is a health survey about radiation. And only 1 out of 5 people have responded. I think there's not trust of government authorities. I mean, 6 months after the accident, you're told, tell us what you ate the morning of the 12th, what size was your plate, where were you that morning, and then at noon, where did you go, et cetera. And people are, I guess, fed up, and there's been a really low response rate. The other thing that we're concerned is that the Fukushima citizens organizations, there are lots of them. One is an organization to protect children from radiation. And they and us, Green Action, and several other groups, we asked the UN Office of the High Commission for Human Rights to investigate the violation of human rights of Fukushima children. This was back in the summer last year. And we know that the UN, this office, asked the Japanese government, they wanted to come and investigate, they said, in November and December. But the government refused, or they said they were too busy. And then later on, pretended that they were still waiting for the UN to contact them again, whereas in reality, it was the ball was in Japan's government's court, and the UN was waiting for them to respond. Anyway, the long and the short of it is Japan unfortunately successfully delayed the commission from coming in and investigating human rights violations in Japan until this November. So we're very concerned. This is the year where Japan's human rights record will be investigated, and we really want to address the violation of children's rights.
Aileen Mioko Smith, I want to thank you for being with us, joining us from Japan. Saburo Kitajima is with us here in New York, though usually in Japan. He worked at the Fukushima Daiichi plant, and he was a union organizer. Talk about the workers at the nuclear plant where the meltdowns took place.
はい、今、福島第一原発の労働者というのはものすごく大変な環境の中で働いています。
Okay, the workers at the Fukushima plant are currently working under extreme circumstances.
どのように大変かと申しますと、ものすごい低賃金と権利が全くない状況の中で働いています。
To be more specific, the wages are extremely low, and there are no rights being observed at the moment.
被爆の作業をしているにもかかわらず、日系の賃金が本当に米ドルで本当に12ドルほどの、はい。
Okay, in spite of being exposed to radiation, the levels of wages run to about maybe $100 a day, more or less.
And exactly what were they exposed to, and what continues to happen at these plants? And in the United States, we know very little about what's happening in Japan.
何が今起きているかってこちらはわからないので。
そうですね。私たち就職作業員は日々放射線にさらされていますが、その放射能というのは主に、パイプから出る水、リーキングしている水で被爆していることが多いです。
In the course of our work, the type of work where people are exposed to the highest levels of radiation would be maintaining the water pipes that are being put in place to cool the reactor.
その他にもう福島第一原発の工場の中はそのものが相当汚染されていて地面から
Okay, and of course the entire site is extremely contaminated, and there's radiation that is coming from the ground.
What workers decided to go back into the plant afterwards, knowing how great the exposure would be?
放射線量を知りながら原発に入っていった労働者というのはどんな方ですか？
はい、原発労働者というのはほとんどが仮想の労働者で、自分たちがどれだけ危険な状況にいるのかということについては理解していない人が多いです。
We're talking about workers who have always worked at perhaps the most marginalized jobs, and who oftentimes are not aware of the risks and had no other choice but to go back.
You have been speaking at anti-nuclear protests in the United States. What is your message?
こちらでの反核運動で発言してますけど、メッセージとは具体的にどういうものですか？
はい、私のメッセージは2点あります。福島第一原発の状況を皆さんに、ニューヨークの皆さんに伝えること、そして、今度はそのニューヨークの皆さん方から福島の、無権利にある労働者の権利を獲得する助けをしてほしいことです。
Well, there's two sides to it, and of course I would like to the people who I've met in New York to understand the situation in New York, to communicate what is exactly happening. At the same time, I would like that the people here support and stand with us in our struggles in Fukushima.
And what is your struggle in Fukushima? What are you calling for there?
福島では具体的に何を求めているんですか？
はい、福島の、原発労働者が求めているのは被爆量に見合った正当な給与、そして、健康の将来起こる健康被害に対する保障です。
For the moment, the workers at the Fukushima plant are demanding that they be compensated for exposure to radiation, which is not happening at the moment, and also kind of a compensation and being looked after after working in these plants, since they must leave in a very short period of time.
And that short period of time is, what is the kind of levels of exposure they have right now?
例えばどれぐらいで 短期間で離れなければいけないとか。
はい、一番、大変な作業をしている労働者は2ヶ月で、もうこの職場を去らなければいけません。
Okay, and in those exposed to the highest levels of radiation must leave the plant in a period of under 2 months.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us.
Thank
Saburo Kitajima is in the United States now, but lives in Japan, has worked at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant and is a union organizer there. This is Democracy Now! We're going to continue on lessons learned for U.S. nuclear power plants. Have we learned? We'll be going to a nuclear whistleblower in Vermont. Stay with us.